perhaps? Cheryl, now that's your cue. Now's the time to do this hip hop performance you've been rehearsing.
Drop the beat.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so I need an air horn. Anyone have an air horn I can borrow just for a minute? Uh, this will do. Here we go. Okay, so the top story today, November 25th, from the Washington Post, Taylor Lorenz, everybody. So you know this one's just bulletproof facts, right? It says Twitter plans to restore next week suspended accounts that haven't broken the law or engaged in egregious spam. After 72.4% of 3 million or more people voted yes in Elon Musk's Twitter poll asking his followers, should we restore or provide amnesty to previously suspended accounts if they haven't broken the law or engaged in egregious spam? And 72.4% of them said yes. And then Elon said, yeah, so we're going to go ahead and do that. To which Taylor has tweeted, Elon Musk plans to reinstate nearly all previously banned Twitter accounts, to the alarm of activists and online trust and safety experts. The decision will have dangerous consequences, particularly for vulnerable users. To which Mr. Musk has said, where did it go? Where was? Oh no, those are the links to his poll. Give me 2 seconds to show you his response. 1 second here. He said something about the Wall Street Journal. Gosh dang it! Give me 2 seconds. My apologies, everybody. I'm so unprofessional here. I know you expect more from a high quality news outlet like Tech News Around the World. So
You
he
mean Elon's tweet? He did
yeah.
a poll.
Hold on. He said he kind of slammed the Wall Street Journal. Where did it go?
Yeah, Wall Street Journal and New York Times. I saw the tweet too.
No, he said of AP.
I think it's about SBF.
Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. AP has the same story. That's why I couldn't find it. So AP does a tweet from their official Twitter account saying, Musk says granting amnesty to suspended Twitter accounts, to which Elon Musk says, AP is such an expert in misinformation, Twitter couldn't hope to compete. And then says, but you have piqued my curiosity. Who are these online experts you speak of? So, he says, yeah, who are these online experts that you speak of? Because, he kind of thinks of himself as an online expert. And he thinks of, his close friends as online experts and, as people who've made billions of dollars doing it. And he's kind of curious, who are these people that you have that I don't know that claim to be such experts? Anyway, so that's your top story for today. And you know what tells me? That tells me today's going to be a bit of a slow news day. Elon Musk says Twitter may start manually authenticating accounts on December 2nd with a blue check mark for people, gold check marks for companies, and gray check marks for governments. Binance releases its proof of reserves system starting with Bitcoin, claiming it has 582,485 Bitcoin and 575,742 Bitcoin user balance, a reserve ratio of 101% for users. So Binance has put out its own proof of reserve system in light of FTX's meltdown. It shows a reserve ratio of 101% for its users' Bitcoin balances. Yeah, so they have more Bitcoin than its users do in aggregate on their system. Next, from Engadget, Google's Project Zero reported 5 security flaws in devices with Mali GPUs in the summer, but Samsung, Xiaomi, Google, and others are yet to release patches. And that's Apple's delight that the Android ecosystem is slower to resolve these things generally. Microsoft plans to charge $1,200 per year for acceleration increase in its EVs. So if you want to go faster in your car, you'll have to pay 1,000 to an extra $100 a month to have the full speed capability of the vehicle. Toyota and GM have all trialed similar subscription-based features. Acceleration increase. UK police, Europol, Dutch police, and others dismantle online phone number spoofing service iSpoof. We covered that yesterday. Twitter abruptly fired 50 engineers. We covered that yesterday. The rest of these are all the stories we read yesterday because it's Thanksgiving in the US and these lazy mofos are so whacked out and overdosed on turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie
And Budweiser.
that they can't even bring themselves to generate any news because they're literally the entire country is passed out on the sofa watching college football.
Or maybe because no one is tweeting.
You sound jealous. It's Black Friday, so everybody's out spending all their money.
Do I sound better? Just a little bit. I must say, Thanksgiving dinner is one of life's great joys. And living in Asia, I have to say, it might be. People ask me, do I miss living in America? And the answer is, hysterically, not at all. At all. However, if I could take one little piece of America and bring it to Asia, it might be Thanksgiving. Because we have Halloween now. So, and by the way, even Elon Musk himself tweeted today that the concoction of flavors that is Thanksgiving dinner is remarkable in some sense. I forget his exact wording, but something to that effect. That and he's not wrong. Like the mix of
Especially,
cranberry and pumpkin pie and potato and turkey with gravy, and you get that mix of flavors going together. Oh boy, it's like a sensory overload. It's fantastic.
and especially with COVID kind of like tethering off a little bit this year, we got to see people I haven't seen in 3 years. So it
Yeah.
was a bit different this time around.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
real
No more Zoom Thanksgiving dinners.
Tyler, the real question was, how was your political conversations at Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah,
Kanye West wants to run with Trump.
I have a wildly open-minded family who couldn't give a shit about any of it on all sides. Who
Yeah,
take
say
who
he's running for 2024.
yeah. Although the fear is that if Trump wins the nomination for the Republican Party, he's not so terribly likely to win now, given what the after kind of with the hindsight, the benefit of hindsight of having done the midterms. It doesn't seem like Trump's as appealing as he once was, and B, uh, what was the other point? If he loses the bid to be the front runner for the GOP, that he's going to sabotage the party. He will literally try and destroy the party. And somebody said on Twitter perfectly, uh, it's like a crazy ex-boyfriend. If I can't have you, nobody can. And so he's literally going to destroy the party to the best of his ability if he doesn't win the nomination.
I see more and more fine detail reports of Republicans that actually dislike seeing him running from his own party that are very frustrated and they're against him, his own party.
Well, I think it's for lack of what they feel is a stronger candidate, and DeSantis seems to be in the front running, and so Trump has called out DeSantis, and it clearly perceived him as a threat. Um, and the right's really got to come together and make up their mind on that issue. And like I said, if Trump loses, he's going to take a pound of flesh out of the party. It shows you just his lack of allegiance to it, really, at the end of the day, which is not a surprise. I think he only joined the GOP because he can't win. He couldn't have won as an independent, otherwise he would have. Because his prior political career for the past 30 years voted a bit more to the left in many instances. So it's not like he has some grand allegiance to the Republicans, and losing the nomination, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't be out of character if he were to go scorched earth on the party that he's trying to lead.
So, Tyler, you know what was interesting? If you follow I always say follow the money. If you follow the money where Trump always donated, we all know he donated to the Democrats all the time, except to Hillary. I mean, she donated a ton to Bill, but not much. I think like a total of $600 to Hillary. I think the interesting part was where you started to see his political shift from a financial perspective, because he donated a lot to Anthony Weiner, and then when Anthony Weiner's story started coming out, that's when you
No
started to
pun
see
intended.
and that was like 2010, 2011 time frame.
Yes, Anthony's Weiner story came out. No pun intended. So that was the fastest version of Tech News Around the World we've ever done, because on Thanksgiving, not much happens in the U.S.
Wow, like less than 15 minutes. My God,
Yeah, it's a record.
that was fast.
Note to self: the Friday after Thanksgiving, we can go ahead and skip that one.
Yeah.
Don't worry, there'll be plenty for next week from what I've seen on the hacking front.
And we've got the tweets. We might as well. I have one myself, so go ahead and get your favorite story ready as I get ready to read this one.
Yeah, I pinned one on top too, by the way.
You did okay. WeWork, China's former tech head, introduces on-demand work pods for mental health. I love this story. You know why? Because I said a few days ago, and look at that photo.
Exactly.
It's in a shopping mall of sorts. And as I said, that this is brilliant. What's the date on this? November 25th. It's from today. So there was a bald aging tech bro in here 3 days ago talking about how he was just in Helsinki meeting with a pod company and had an interesting discussion with the pod company. And this aging tech bro, I'm going to go ahead and pretend, that he's me for the moment. And the conversation that I had, I realized that WeWork's model, of which they made billions of dollars, was predicated on getting people to commute to a optimal work environment for maximum productivity. And primarily that's the point of WeWork, is you're paying money to go to an environment that is more optimal for your productivity, right? And the idea is you're more productive when there's other people around you working ostensibly. There might be a little bit of a networking factor. WeWork definitely used that in their marketing, that it's a community and there's a community value. That, boy, did they bang that drum a lot. To a lot of chagrin from everybody who would love to see hard evidence of that. Of course, it would be hard to. But anyway, having been at a WeWork myself, I was gifted a WeWork membership, by the way, and because I helped them launch in the Nordics. But so I do spend a significant amount of time at WeWorks. However, from my own personal experience, when I go into a WeWork, I make a beeline for the telephone booths that they have. They're a little bit bigger than normal telephone booths. They're little pods. Because I found out that I am most productive in those pods myself. Notably so. I might even say exponentially so. I can focus in those pods, and I struggle with a little bit of like not ADD or HDHD or whatever, but in those pods
ASD.
you have no distractions at all, and something about the sound, and there's nothing to look at but your screen, just really keeps me very focused. I'm hyper productive in those things. And then it occurred to me when I was meeting with the pod company in Helsinki a few days ago that the irony that I'm driving across town to get into a pod, when in the future these pods are going to be everywhere. And then why don't I just have a membership to the pods that are everywhere so that they're always around me and I always have an office within a kilometer wherever I happen to be at any time in any city? That would be truly fantastic. And why not pay as I go, like a scooter, one of those electric scooter bikes? Even better. Why do I necessarily need a monthly membership or whatever? So because WeWork does that as well. They have the hot desks where you can pay just a 1 month membership or whatever, and you have access to the hot desks, which is not a permanent desk. Anyway, and these pods have monitors that you can plug into and screens that you can share. And they're more than just for one person. They can now fit 4 people comfortably, 6 by Tokyo standards. And they even have coffee machines in them. And they're even sponsored by Nespresso, some of these things in Tokyo, or
So
another
what's the
coffee.
size, Tyler? What is it, like 5 feet, 10 feet? What are the dimensions? Do you know?
It's about, in, my brain prioritizes for metric measurements now, but in feet,
Oh, that's okay. You can do
it'd
metric.
be
Yeah.
it'd be about a 6 foot by 6 foot space. So you could somewhat comfortably have 4 people sitting at a table together, and then on the wall above the table to the side of you is the screen that
Like
you
a
plug
little workspace or study space from libraries at universities. That's at
precisely,
least what that reminds me of.
like a restaurant booth for a family of 4, or if you're really hungry, 6. It's the same. It's like a restaurant booth for Americans, and
It
what
sounds like you have Superman syndrome and you like going into like telephone booths.
I do. I just find myself productive in them, and then I realize it's totally asinine to have to commute across town to get into a booth when these booths could be everywhere, and they will be everywhere. Um, and boy, is that going to change uh, potential work, like culture and whatnot. Uh, and by the way, I'm getting a lot more work done on my mobile device than ever before, as those things get lickety split and the apps get constantly improve and the connections constantly improve. And I don't know if everyone else is noticing this, but I'm noticing that I'm starting to be able to do most of my work on a mobile. So there are times when I do want a laptop and I do want a, a pod and I do want to have a meeting somewhere, and a cafe isn't these are far more optimal than meeting at a Starbucks or a coffee shop if you want to actually sit down and have like a, a meeting where the conversation is of importance. You know what I'm saying? Where I mean, there are conversations where it's totally casual and you want to sit down and have a coffee together. Those are very valuable too. Don't get me wrong. They're like there's not a high expectation of outcome, but there's a lot of value to be made. But if you are really focused and you really want to get a point across, and you really want to you know uh, you have an objective, then these pods might be far more optimal because the sound is they're soundproof. You have the screen, a very large screen you can plug into and share, and you could even zoom people in, and the sound would be fine for everybody involved. So anyway, um, I'm realizing it's rare that I have a flash of a vision of the future where it's like, oh yeah, that's going to happen,
I
and
can
this
see these
already is.
pods.
Yeah, it
I
already
can
is
s-
happening, and as usual, the Japanese are ahead of it.
yeah, I can see
Um,
these pods in all. I mean, the future in all convenience stores.
Pretty much. Well, by the way, that's where it gets really wild because these could be multi-use in that, um, as Japan's renowned for doing People think karaoke is a place where you go and sing songs. It's not. It's a place where you go and drink. And it's because you are paying per hour and you can drink as much as you can goddamn handle for that hour. And so, from a Japanese perspective, this is an all you can drink buffet that happens to have a microphone. So, you see the multi use here. It's entertainment, it's, you know, alcoholism on tap. And these work pods will similarly have a kind of multi-functionality to it as like meeting points on a map that you can order like Ubers, and very just very or you can leave things in, like, or you can have things delivered to. For example, I need to. Right. By the way, delivery today in major cities can take hours for many things. I can tell you for a fact, living in Asia and having just been in Ho Chi Minh City and having seen what Grab has evolved into in Ho Chi Minh City, which is, by the way, like 10 million people in one city, and it feels like 100 million people in one city. Grab in Ho Chi Minh City is truly phenomenal. You can get anything in 10 minutes. So when you can get anything in 10 minutes, these pods become very interesting because the pods will be kind of geostationary in a way that make them kind of ideal for the receiving of these things. The problem with the delivery when things get down to 10, 15 minutes is, yeah, you're geolocated on the map and the driver can see that, but they get next to you and you're in a very busy city like Hong Kong or Ho Chi Minh or whatever, in any big Asian city, it's difficult to see who's who even when you're 3 meters away. But if you're in the pod, well, hey, I come deliver this thing. I'm in pod number A21C, you know, and it's right here on the map. And boom, you just sit there and chill and do your work, and here it comes. So,
Tyler, can I mention
yeah,
something
yeah,
quickly
go ahead.
on this? And I think this is really phenomenal. I've never tried it, to be honest. But just thinking out loud, I think this could be kind of like a Disneyland for corporate espionage to in what way, in one way or another, let alone country level espionage. But I think it's really great. It has a lot of upside, but at the same time, from a security perspective, whether it was communication security or even being tapped, like audio tapped or video tapped, I wonder how safe that might be for meetings or getting some work done.
Hmm. Well, you know what? That's a perfect segue to the story that I have to share today. Which, where the hell did it go?
So
Where
I
did
had
it
a
go?
different Tyler. So since most of my stuff is done here in the U.S.,
Mhm.
overseas are those pods like WeWork have? Do they do a lot more conference room renting? Like I could tell you right over here in New York City, that's one of the main reasons why everybody gets it, so they can pretty much rent a conference room on the fly.
Yeah, for sure. Because that can be expensive. If it far more expensive than these pods, they're going to create a new market segment or category of on-demand meeting rooms. Trying to book meeting rooms can get quite pricey. And by the way, interesting to note, every Starbucks in Thailand has a, a meeting room that you can book like this with a screen and a table that normally holds. They can range from 6 to 20 people, and they're gorgeous with quite large screens. And you sit in there as long as you're ordering from the Starbucks. You can sit there for the time that you have booked, and usually they're very rarely ever booked. These and they have a door, and you can close the door and have your meetings in there. They're fantastic. Anyway, um, but the fact that this guy who was WeWork's former tech head in China is the one who sees this opportunity doesn't surprise me at all. The WeWork dude in China knows what the future of productivity and work looks like. To him, I gotta say, I totally agree with him. So the story says his name is Dominic Penaloza, the former head of innovation and technology at WeWork China, is introducing a bold idea: on-demand work booths placed in public locations, and has managed to quickly raise capital for the business. He named his new venture Peace, in hope of boosting mental health for those using the company's quiet, privacy-first space to avoid crowded offices and noisy cafes. I gotta say, I like that because I have to admit, my productivity is quite low. As much as I love working in cafes, my output is actually pretty shitty. Peace announced this week that it had raised a seven-figure funding round from a group of business partners and entrepreneurs. It is the latest iteration of Penaloza's continuous experiment with flexible work. In 2019, he spearheaded an internal project to offer pay-as-you-go spaces at WeWork China. As I was telling you about, you had these pay-as-you-go spots inside of, so I guess he's credited with pioneering that internally at WeWork. A year later, he moved on to found his own prop tech-focused startup studio, which incubated similar on-demand workspace service, but tapping, I think it's a typo, by tapping third-party landlords. 7 months old Peace launched its first batch of portable pods last week at 3 high-end malls and 2 office buildings in the heart of Shanghai. It aims to deploy 1,000 of them across the metropolis in the coming year, Penaloza said on a video call from one of the pods in the mall. Oh, that's genius, by the way. So if you open the link at the top of the room and scroll down, you will see this dude sitting in one of his own pods, calling into the journalist to be like, "Hi, yeah, we're launching these pods. Hello from the pod. We are selling privacy on demand." Interesting way to think of it, especially in light of the previous person's comments. The founder said when he asked if the booths would be equipped with security cameras, which, again, quite ironic to call them security cameras, especially when you hear my next story, by the way. We don't plan to put cameras in. Interesting. I think it's more important to make our users feel that it's really 100% of private space. No one can hear what they're saying, and of course, no one can see their screen or them. Each Peace Pod is 3.5 square meters big, which would be what now? About 2 by 2. So you get 2 meter by 2 meter would be 4, so just less than 2 by 2 meters, which is about 6 by 6 feet, as I had said previously. The portable box comes with an app-enabled lock, as Jesus Christ, me and this dude are on the same page. Electric sockets, Wi-Fi, soundproof walls, and ventilation fans. Peace is also exploring collaboration with Lumen Labs, a startup using a novel far UVC method to inactivate viruses and bacteria, which allegedly can battle COVID-19. So they're using the light that I asked John about, and he confirmed that shit actually works. The long list of equipment explains the steep cost of the pod in the mid tens of thousands of yuan to manufacture one. So a bit over $1,000 per pod. He believes his team has figured out a sustainable revenue model. Each pod costs 11 yuan per 15 minutes. That's about $1.50 for 15 minutes. That's not bad. $1.50? If you got to make a call, or you have a quick meeting for $3, oh, hang on, I'm at Disneyland with the kids, but I got to do this, kind of important call in or whatever. Just pop into the pod for $3 for a 30-minute Skype call or whatever. But this is a reference point, the founder said, and in the future, the cost can vary based on location and real-time supply and demand. Yeah, exactly, because you're going to have that data through the app, and it's going to be Uber for these little pods. It isn't cheap. An Americano costs about 25 yuan at an average cafe in China's major cities. But if 4 people were to split the cost, it's genius, exactly. Then you get the whole cost of the room is $1.50 for 15 minutes. You split that 4 ways, and you're down to 30 cents. So, and if Peace reaches a meaningful density, it could be a viable business. Peace also found a sweet spot in its relationship with landlords, including retail spaces. You know what I'm thinking, guys? If this dude starts getting traction in China, I might have to put a fucking pitch deck together and go beg my billionaire friends to go big at scale with this shit in the US, because this could, if And then the whole bet on behalf of the once. By the way, this is an inside glimpse into how the startup sausage gets made. If this guy proves market fit in China, you somehow find his data of traction, of proving market fit. You show your investors in another country, Europe or the US, pick your market, and say, here's this dude in China who's killing it. We think it'll work in the same way in the US or Europe. And, you know, let's beat him to the punch. Let's go big. And that's the kind of thing where the investors are like, oh yeah, you're going to need let's put in a whole lot of money so you can be the Uber on this thing and block him out before he gets there or whatever. So, wow.
I have a question, Tyler.
Yeah,
Okay, this kind of pots, right? Especially if you don't have cleaners going all around the place to make sure it's clean. It probably will work in Japan, but I'm not sure about
great point.
China and US because of the culture. Because in Japan they don't leave shit for others to clear, right? But how
Amen to
about
that.
China and
You're,
US?
you're, you're damn right about that.
Just look at the restroom.
By the
Well,
way,
if it's not super high tech inside, you could insulate it and have a automated cleaning system, similar to what we were just talking
Yeah,
about
how
with the
about
sanitation and other things for concerns. But
how
garbage
about
and other things like that,
yeah,
yeah.
right, the empty cups and stuff and the
Yeah, yeah,
spill.
but the whole thing could fold up. It could be like some sort of origami internal swiping system. The thing just folds up into a box and then unfolds. It's like Autobots, time to transform the room.
Yeah, I
so
believe a lot of these technologies are used in surgical room, basically transfer from one patient to the next. So that would be transfer.
so the where did it go? Um, there's another quote here that I want to get into. He says, our formula for working with real estate companies is one of our most secret sauces because this hardware, in the landlord language, is actually an asset enhancement. Right. He's right. Landlords are actually going to like this because it brings in foot traffic into your existing space. And all I'm asking for is, 3.5 square meters, and I'll make the rest of your 100 meters much more active by,
Or the train
you
stations.
meaning,
Well, the whole
shopping.
point is that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that the idea of bringing in people who are engaged in business is already a different kind of customer or patron. So that in itself is already a sort of value proposition because I think what is it, 75% of people are not engaged in that kind of work. So, but the people who are perhaps of a different earning. I don't know what to call it, ceiling or whatnot. So I think that for a business, if it's a commercial space or if it's some sort of other space, I think that would be very appealing for professionals and business folks.
Hold on. The cleaning question is answered in the article. It says Pieces tech platform automatically alerts the property manager at the end of every booking, and the cleaner will be sent to the pod. A process that can be as quick as spraying surfaces with disinfectant and wiping them. Investors in Peace consist mostly of entrepreneurs, including Joaquim Poilo and Francois Amand from Adden Group, Chris Brook from Brook Husband, Pablo Fernandez from Cleaner Spaces, Patrick Berman, and just a whole bunch of other people you never heard of. So, very interesting. Thank you for finding that, Cheryl. That's wild. I gotta ping. I gotta send this to the dude in Helsinki, who I was just telling
I love
that
it.
these things are gonna boom very soon. Yeah, if this guy starts getting traction, watch out for somebody's gonna raise a big boat of money to do this in the EU, and perhaps there'll be another one for the US because this guy's going to be very busy scaling this across China for quite a while. Okay, So the story that I had that's somewhat related about the privacy and whatnot, um, I got to find where it went. It was give me 1 minute because I now found the website where I found the article. There it is. Here it is. I will pin it to the top of the room here. Let me get the link. Little linky link. Let's kill the pop up. Here we go. Are you ready? So all about the cameras and the whatnot. Because I'm thinking you're going to want a built-in camera above the TV or put a camera in the TV that you plug into so that you can have a built-in Zoom call. And that camera, is probably much better than the one on a laptop. Maybe not. Every laptop has a camera, so maybe you don't need it. So anyway, but there was another thought that I had, which is what's to stop people from using this as a quickie room, for lack of a better word, where uh, romantic young couples, uh, at the shopping mall, jump into the pod
That
for.
is that is exactly what I thought, and I thought that the upkeep and cleaning on it would be like a cheap hotel room. And I'm not sure that landlords of, Class A buildings want that kind of potential for activity or that potential for foot traffic.
Just put in a
So,
user rating system. So hey, this user came in and they fucked in the booth. They're now not allowed to come to this booth.
well,
What if it
what are we
turns
going
out
to
that
use for that?
what if
We
it
can
turns out
use
that
the Twitter blue check mark. That's what we can use. Just
what
kidding. But
but but Eric, assuming you're the founder of this company and you find out that half of your revenue is coming from young couples, going buck wild in your booths.
I would
uh,
pivot.
I wouldn't. I would take the money and run.
Yeah, no, that's
That's
what I'm
where.
saying. Pivot into, lean into that business is
yeah,
what I'm
you,
saying.
But
you need to pivot into the opportunity. Yeah.
they were
Well,
scared, no more users. So
In
Tyler,
Japan,
I
that's
just
called
shared
love
it.
hotel. So
Yeah,
that's love
Yeah,
yeah.
but,
pods,
but
right?
oh, Cheryl just nailed it. It's perhaps no coincidence that these things were first happening in Japan because Japanese people, and this might be big news to a lot of listeners, young Japanese couples are very, 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 very used to the idea of going to pay for a hotel room to do this because you're not going to do it at your house because the walls are very thin because the homes are designed with very thin
Right,
walls.
because they have paper walls.
Right. So they are it's practically a given that you're going to go rent a love hotel room that you pay for by the hour. By the way, I'm trying to remember what the rates are for those rooms. I imagine it's in the like $60 an hour range in Tokyo. Where these booths now you're talking pennies on the dollar for 30 minutes in one of these booths.
It'll be the new workplace for OnlyFans.
Oh my dear
Well, it
lord!
could Tyler could also go a different direction. People may see it as a business opportunity for the oldest profession. So not just because you have two willing
Oh
people to
shit!
use the room, some go the other way.
I hadn't even thought of that.
That would be the thing I'd be most concerned about is
And
it
now
being
and
used
now
for
you're going to have
little
Twitter streams full of ladies saying, "Hey, would you like to have a constructive meeting with me to discuss very important matters? You can meet me at this booth at this time."
Would you like to earn some Bitcoin? Join me in booth 4.
But Tyler, in Taiwan, actually, our 7-Eleven, I mean the
Hold on,
convenience store, provide those
booth.
seats. And
This is new meaning to
there's,
the word booth, babes. By the way, go ahead, baby.
yeah, the booths. So right now, they provide booths as well.
I
But they do it.
got it, Tyler.
Uh, anyway, so in the end, I mean, what kind of job or occupation use this kind of boost the most? Like insurance, like real estate, the middleman, or anyone who usually runs at outside. I mean, those kind of jobs, or the meetings, they can ask their customers to go there because normally they will do like the sightseeing. I mean, don't go to for real estate. these brokers, they show their customer the houses, then they can rent this kind of place because it's quiet, than like in the McDonald's or other fast food restaurant. So they like to a public but quieter place, and this fits them their needs the most, and it's cheap as well. So I mean, in the end, it's very, very convenient and suitable for those kind of occupation. But just like, sorry, I forgot who mentioned that for security or safety reasons, a lot of other experts won't use this kind of public space because your conversation might be overheard. So and the one in Taiwan, they use have transparent doors. It's not completely sealed, so that won't make this kind of parts to be the sexual places for uh, kids, because most of them it's the students who cannot afford the love hotels things, then they they will risk their own appearances in public in this kind of place to do something like that. So it has its market, but if you let that kind of uh, inappropriate actions happening in this kind of parts, no more user won't come. Then the reputation, if this kind of bad reputation is out, then the business model will fail. So that's why in the end of these convenience stores, even they provide the spaces, they design it as half public, half opened, so people will behave better. Yeah, that's what I want to support.
Okay. So the story I wanted to share is now at the top of the room. It says the United Kingdom stops installment of Chinese cameras in government buildings over security risks. UK, such Chinese companies may be subjected to Chinese security laws, with Britain advising to disconnect them from core computer networks. According to the Straits Times, the government furthered that such cameras should be removed altogether in a written statement to Parliament. Cabinet Office Minister says the decision was made following a review of current and future possible security risks associated with the installment of visual surveillance systems on the government estate. Quote, the review has concluded that in light of the threat to the UK and the increasing capability and connectivity of these systems, additional controls are required. Departments have therefore been instructed to cease deployment of such equipment onto sensitive sites where it is produced by companies subject to the national intelligence law of the People's Republic of China. Since security considerations are always paramount around these sites, we are taking action now to prevent any security risks from materializing. Okay, just another day in the grand decoupling. And any other tweets since we met last time? Cheryl found what a brilliant find Cheryl had. Anybody? Oh, I'm in the wrong Twitter account. That's why. Okay, here we
I
go.
found one more about
Yeah.
UK to criminalize deepfake porn sharing without consent.
Oh wow. So here we go. That's fast legislation around new technology. So you've got a new category of porn, which is the ability to change the face of anybody in any porn video or photo very easily now, automatically with no, with AI. And so now and it's becoming a very hot category on uh, Reddit, subreddits, and whatnot. So the UK criminalizing deepfake porn sharing without consent. Well, yeah, because it's essentially similar to sharing. What do they call that when somebody shares um, intimate images of somebody, which has also been criminalized. It's a category of the law. I forget what do they call that. Anyway,
Isn't
Sexting?
that porn? Sexting, right.
And here I was picturing them taking. I was picturing them taking that video from Elon and AOC and turning that into a fake porn.
that video is hilarious, by the
Nice.
way.
Fucking hilarious.
That is one of the funniest videos I've seen in a long time. If you
It's just
haven't
the
seen
fact
it,
that they don't really say it. It's just like, all right, ready? Let's go. Okay.
it's
yeah,
it's a
Is it the
video.
Senate lady and Elon Musk?
It's yes,
yeah, you see
Yeah,
AOC.
him,
I
Elon
saw
Musk.
it. So funny.
It is hilarious. So AOC and Elon Musk are having a bit of a Twitter spat, and they really seem to be very different personalities who really don't get along. And somebody geniusly, really geniusly, edited a video together of an interview of AOC and an interview that Elon Musk did, and edited it such that it looks like they're sitting across from each other having a private conversation with each other, and very cleverly edits the dialogue, splices in just the right moments with just the right facial expressions, where it looks like they're gushingly in love with each other, and it's hilarious.
I think the eyes is so
Yes,
so real.
both of them, their faces
Where do
are.
I find this?
Oh, Francine, you have
I'll
to
send
see
it to
this.
you, Dr. Francis.
I
Someone's
think
got to pin it.
what's quite funny as well. Sorry, I think what's quite funny as well is just how much of sort of quiet time there is. Half the video is just them looking at each other with these really
Yes,
weird sort of like
it's actually the best
looks, and
part.
then they just
Yeah,
like five words and
the eyes, yes, are really the best part. The silent moments are just it's only a minute long, but it's hysterically funny. So
I
if
felt
somebody,
more intimate connection between those two than many people I know in real life. That's
But I'm guessing the implication here is that she's against all the things that are happening with Twitter, or is it some particular issue that she's arguing with Elon?
Well,
right.
they're on the opposite sides of almost every issue because she's pretty far left and he's pretty far right. So,
He
Wait.
represents
How is
what?
Elon far right though? What's one thing that you think
he's
would make
it's
him
not that
far
he's
right?
far right; it's that he's very anti far left.
Yeah. I think that's probably more
Yeah,
accurate.
oh,
I
okay.
wouldn't
That's
say he's
all
far
Because I
right.
remember
right.
the
He's
meme.
just
He said there was like a meme that Elon posted that was something like, "When did I become a conservative?" or something like that, like saying, "Hey, I've been a liberal or
Okay, I'm gonna
free
play it.
thinker this whole time." So it's I don't know why
yeah. I
people
think
would say
it
that. It's like people
primarily
saying that
comes.
about Joe Rogan, for example. So I find that confusing. It's just anti far left is not the same
I
as
apologize.
far right.
I think it comes down to the freedom of speech thing first and foremost. I mean, AOC is a very, she's part of the squad, which they self-proclaim themselves as, which I always find incredibly cringy. And generally, Musk is, introducing a lot of people that I think AOC would be diametrically opposed with. She's, he announced yesterday. I think the people have spoken, and they're going to basically usher in a new. They're going to basically remove the ban on loads of different, people with questionable
It's like he has his own
perspectives.
version of democracy. AOC has her
Yeah,
republic, and he has his
funny
democracy
that,
in
isn't
Twitter.
it? Funny.
All I would ask is that they don't reproduce.
Well, you never know. It could be lucky number 12.
Does Musk have a girlfriend? I literally don't know anything about this dude. Like, does he have a wife?
He has like a whole tribe. He has
Like,
he
He
has
has a soccer team, apparently.
he
He
does.
has 10 children. He has
I
10
thought it was
children
11.
and he's had 3 wives.
Isn't he kind of like Nick Cannon in that way?
This is almost like the start of a Missy Elliott song.
It's almost like as if he was like a Mormon.
I believe the second M is silent, though.
Where is this video? Damn it!
I thought you pin on top.
Yeah, no, that's that. Some press outlet snipped a piece of it and republished it.
Ah,
Actually, Tyler, if you want to
I
find that
found it.
video,
I
look
found
up
it.
Elon Musk's
I got it.
mom because she
I
made
got
a
it.
joke about it.
I have it right here. Copy link. Here we go. It's because it's not a YouTube video. It's uploaded directly to Twitter, and here's the
yes.
tweet that contains the video. Everyone, please
Oh,
take two
Tyler, I'm
minutes.
supposed to be going on a call in 5 minutes. Now I'm going to waste 5 minutes watching this again.
No, it's only 38 seconds long,
No,
and
I know, but you got to watch it more times because it's funny as shit.
it's so funny. You'll watch it 3 times, guaranteed. Yeah, it's hysterically funny.
The funniest part would be is if Elon made it and posted it to under a different account.
One of the biggest problems we have in DC is that everyone's egos are too big. I actually prefer to have a titles role.
Wait, is that true?
So,
Was it actually Elon? How do you have that? How did you come by this information?
let's go. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So good.
You know how so many different AIs that have been put on Twitter quickly were trolled by regular people, and they were driven to become kind of racist and go go crazy, and then they were pulled off. I think the same thing is happening with Elon. I think he's he's a bot himself. He's like people troll him, and then he starts answering in really weird ways. Maybe he needs to lay off social media for a while.
I think
Okay.
he has to. He's kind of the marketing department of Twitter right now. So I think the whole thing is kind of orbiting around him or revolving around him. So if anything, this is creating a sort of news cycle in the same way that Trump, by merely tweeting every day, had me focused on Twitter during his presidency. So I think a similar thing, you need those kind of key players. And I think Elon happens to be one of those players in Twitter.
I think
But
tweeting
he's
is part of his job now.
yeah, but he's easily provoked, right? So and it comes back
Head
with
twit, though. Head twit, right?
I don't think he's emotional. He's just responding according to what he thinks he should respond.
He's getting the people going.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, the
So
good news is that he's providing amnesty for a lot of accounts that were miscategorized as bad at some point, or really bad accounts that were, suspended. I do have such account, and I am looking forward to getting my account back.
Yeah, exactly. 7-Eleven, the convenience store.
hold on a
Yeah,
second.
like why are all my posts about puppies being categorized as being like offensive and not safe for work, right? So I look forward to the gates opening a little bit, not too much, but it's like Pandora's box. Just a little could be too much.
Hold on.
What's the
I'm,
term?
Sam,
Open the
I'm,
kimono?
I'm curious for
Sam,
people's opinion, but like, I was reading one perspective, which was sort of letting some voices back on, like Jordan Peterson or, whatever people of that sort of ilk, where they do say people things that people may not like, but do have some degree of intellectuality to them. Versus others like Trump, which don't really add much of sort of, shall we say, substantive value in terms of conversation, and sort of like why should some people are more valuable to having on the platform as a counterbalance than others. But I wasn't sure really sort of how can you draw that distinction? Like if you let some people on back, but not others, like how do you make that assessment? So I'm curious what people think about that because it was something that got me wondering.
Let them sort it out. Let them put everybody back on and let the people sort it out again. That's all. I mean, I never understood why people were banned from Twitter. I mean,
Oh, there
except
are
for,
campaigns. There are campaigns to get people off Twitter sometimes. Like, for example, for a little while, I was doing a little bit of, you know, uh, fighting back the flat earthers, and they ganged on me. They got my account suspended.
It's
well,
actually entertaining to.
Alex Jones is the only person. And the reason for that would be that he made those families of the victims so miserable. But Jordan Peterson, I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't think Alex Jones will find his way back on the platform. So Sam Harris is an intellectual that a lot of people follow, and he left Twitter, and it's actually entertaining to see because he preaches about cognitive flexibility, yet is so rigid that he just quit um, because of the people that are being allowed back.
Yeah, and that comes from the guy who said, "Hey, I don't care if there's dead babies on that laptop, right, or something to that effect." So, very
Yeah,
flexible sometimes. Other
I
times, not so
really,
flexible.
I follow Sam Harris, and first of all, I didn't know that he quit Twitter, and second of all, um, I think that's a ridiculous and out of character response for him. I mean, he's a neuroscientist.
Yeah, even Eric Weinstein just tweeted that, in the last 2 years, he's kind of noticed a shift. I just thought I'd share that as it's something that pertained to Sam Harris as well. But I'm not so shift in basically how he's talking and how he's, I guess, behaving on the platform. Um, but that was Eric's
Well,
tweet today. But
now he's more like a meditation teacher. And so
or a
I think
pretend one.
you can't be a pretend meditation teacher. You're either teaching people to follow their breath or you're not. And, he is, he's doing that. But I think he doesn't feel like the kind of work that he's doing now lends itself to being on Twitter, which when he was a public intellectual, he could be.
But what is he now, if not still a public intellectual? I think he is. He's just in what? In sabbatical from Twitter.
It just shows you that it's easy to talk big talk and not really live by what you're preaching. So it appears to happen a lot.
Totally, totally. I think he just got criticized too much.
I personally think everybody needs to take a mental health break from social media.
And grow thick skin because you're gonna meet all sort of weirdos on whatever social media you're on. So just brush it off and move along. You don't have to bother with every single little thing.
Well, I think Sam Harris might have a different kind of set of threats, and from the accounts that probably didn't necessarily break the law, were kind of maybe almost doing that when engaging with Sam. That might have been, I think, a big problem for Sam because he spends money on personal security, and that's perhaps as a result of the things that he says, and whether they're perhaps too spicy for some people, the kind of anxiety and stress that just being on social media can put on your family in that kind of situation. I think him opting out of it might be something that the rest of us could take away. Hey, if things are too crazy, just go away for a while. It's not like anybody can be like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to write Sam an email. Yeah, well, that's hoping that he looks at it, right? Like, it kind of gives him a little bit of time to perhaps lick his wounds. So I hope Sam Harris does return. I think he's a great thinker, perhaps misspoke, but we all do that, and I think that's fine. So come back, Sam. We miss
Okay.
I
So
also,
There's another side.
I was going to say, I also think a lot of people don't realize sometimes your actions on social media do turn kinetic, and I've experienced that firsthand.
way to put that in the most innocuous form. Events have a way of evolving into a kinetic form. It's like, what? Yeah, somebody brings a fucking baseball bat or a gun or says they're gonna fucking stab your kid or something, and that really can fuck up a day. And now, how much resources are you gonna spend to ensure that that risk is not there, that that harm has been neutralized? So, yeah, I can just imagine the kind of accounts that perhaps were addressed before. I think perhaps Twitter was more of an ally of the woke left, and now it's going to be more of a moderator central role. So it'll be interesting how that changes.
There's another aspect of what's going on. Maybe the intellectuals are leaving because they started feeling that Twitter is really not the platform for them to be in. It's becoming too toxic, too racist, too sort of, extremist in a way that it just doesn't appeal to them. And there are many other outlets. People are moving to TikTok. They are moving to Mastodon. I think the written form is really dying. It doesn't matter on which platform you're on. it's just not, it's not appealing to the millennials and everybody. They want to see videos, they want to see really quick things. Give me the whatever tweet you're going to give me in a short video, you'll have more attention from people. Perhaps that's what's going on, but
Yeah,
that
Twitter is for linking, not for thinking, I think is Sean Carroll's phrase, or at least I'm borrowing it and he's borrowing it from somebody else. But I think that really kind of highlights the difference between like the old form of just text and now this whole channel of voice. Well, you can't really bullshit with voice. Text, it's a little bit easier. You can Google things. I remember being in a room a few days ago with theists and atheists arguing, as they always do, as if it was some sort of scene out of Raised by Wolves. But the one thing that kind of caught my ear was, hey, I don't want to hear typing in the background. And I want you to respond very quickly so I know you're not just looking shit up. And I was like, oh, wow, it's an interesting check to see whether the person is, perhaps doing something that gives them an advantage that you think makes them seem dishonest. So I do think something is changing.
yeah,
Whether Twitter
keep the
will be
mic
able to
open,
take.
keep the mic open, no googling.
Eric,
Yeah,
Eric,
no, no.
wait.
It's,
Eric, have you been on Clubhouse, dude? What do you mean people can't bullshit with voice? I mean, how many rooms are bullshit with voice?
like check this. If I ask John Madison in a specific detail about the virus or medicine, it's not like he can give me some crazy article or pull out GPT-3 because we're waiting in real time for, let's say, John to answer something. And if you ask me something, you can see to what extent, if you interrogate me live, to what extent I have knowledge, where the boundaries are, and then the question is, how honest am I being by front loading my biases or the limits of my knowledge, right? So I think that's an interesting distinction between text and voice, in my opinion, in my experience here over the last 2 years.
That didn't stop that guy from being on Joe Rogan and being such a big deal that people wanted to ban Joe Rogan of Spotify. And that was a doctor supposedly, right? And the whole thing with the vaccine.
Malone, Robert
Something
Yeah,
Malone.
Malone,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, if
So
you listen to him, if you're a professional and you listen to him, you're like, well, what are the technical details? Like, if there's actually a few post-mortem videos that professionals did of Robert Malone's interview and sections of it, and you can hear the kind of dissections that people
I
do.
I know,
And
but he did a lot of damage in the interim because not
that's
everyone's
a lot
gonna
of
look at that.
damage.
Yeah. By the way, does everyone recognize, and has been on this for a long time, that we've never spent anywhere near this amount of time talking about Twitter until Elon bought the company? So, I
Yes,
mean, whatever the implications are of that, because you're well beyond the realm of technology now. You're all talking more about almost literally like 230 issues about, media regulation, but that's fine. I mean, but you're well beyond anything to do with technology. And we could people could
Other
speak
than
about.
when Tyler was
It's
talking about
okay.
it
It's
for a while there, right?
Black Friday. We have a slow news day. We finished the tech
Well,
news in 15 minutes. Ken, you're late for
it's more,
class.
it's more than that, Ken. Technology has an impact on humanity. It always has had. And for a long time, we didn't have time or energy to think about it. And now we do. Maybe it's maybe too late, but we did.
Yeah,
Tech,
sometimes it
tech.
do be like that.
All right, here we go. So BB found a really good article from a couple months back from Japan, where 7-Eleven is a considerable social and commercial
Tyler,
force.
Taiwan is our
Sorry,
7-Eleven.
Taiwan, thank you. And the President Chain Store Core 7-Eleven convenience store chain yesterday launched private work spaces to cater to people seeking an alternative to working from home amid COVID pandemic. The spaces, which can be rented by the hour, are on the second floor of its Qinghang branch near the Taoyuan high-speed rail station. The store has 14 rooms, are 11 of which can be used by one person at a rate of 100 Taiwanese dollars per hour,
About $3.
$3 an
Is
hour.
Taoyuan high speed rail station near the airport too? Taoyuan Airport?
It can take like 15 minutes of this trains from the airport to this station. So it's near the airport in a way. Yes.
And the spaces are clearly partitioned. And the new offering reflects the code. Interesting. The said it currently they have more than 6,000 7-Eleven stores in Taiwan. The owner of this. So this is I didn't even realize that you could put a pod in a. Oh, was Cheryl? Was it you who said that these would come to convenience stores?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah, you might be right.
Because normally especially in Taiwan, I'm not sure if it's the same rules apply to in Japan, because in Taiwan they ask those owners, you have to place your store at a very busy street and normally around the corner, so people will gather there and it's easy to access the convenience store, and you can grab a drink, some snacks there as well. So that's why they try to bring people in, because normally traditionally,
Oh,
I think
maybe,
in US they
maybe,
don't want to
maybe,
people stay, right.
maybe. So here in Thailand, where 7-Eleven is probably the most important company in all of Thailand, by the way, as anyone who's been here can figure out, the 7-Elevens in the past few years, let's say 4, has introduced what they call all cafe, which is like McCafe in McDonald's, but right next to the cash registers. So when you're standing at the cash register to check out, there's now a cafe right next to you, and they make very Starbucks like drinks for about $1. You can get nearly any drink that you would normally get at a Starbucks for $1, where in Starbucks they will cost you about 5. And now, so keep in mind that 7-Eleven is now copying Starbucks by introducing a cafe in every 7-Eleven with a barista, right? They train the cashiers to be baristas now. And so when they're not being a barista, they're cashiers. When somebody needs a coffee and they stand, 1 meter to the left of the cash register to stand at the little micro cafe, the cashier just says, okay, great, what do you want? I know how to make an espresso or a latte or a flat white or whatever you want. And even the green tea, frappuccino, all of it, like nearly the entire Starbucks menu. So um, keep in mind the
Tyler,
one
is that
piece.
price differential that you just gave a currency translation, or are there they're not Starbucks in Thailand, so you're basically comparing it to Starbucks in the
No,
United States?
there very much are Starbucks in Thailand, and I know intimately the prices of both. The Starbucks, a typical Starbucks medium-sized drink or a grande is going to cost you about 180 Thai baht, which is almost exactly $5. The same drink at the 7-Eleven, really nearly identical drink, will cost you 35 baht, which is pretty much exactly $1.
I'm surprised. I thought maybe outside of like Bangkok or something that a lot of the areas would be too poor to pay for that.
It's
Yeah,
not
you would be
true.
surprised. You would be surprised. Starbucks's. I just, by the way, where did I show it on my Facebook account or something? There's parts of Bangkok where in one photo you can capture multiple Starbuckses. They're on top. They're packed on top of each other in Thailand, and particularly Bangkok. It's absurd the number of Starbucks in Bangkok.
Well,
But
no, that's why I said outside of Bangkok, because Bangkok gets a tremendous amount of tourism. It's one of the
sure,
most visited cities in the world. So you're going to
it
have
it is.
foreigners who will buy it
It
anyway
literally is the most
over there.
visited city in the world. It's consistently the most visited city in the world. But outside of Bangkok, yes, generally most Thais are not in the market to go to Starbucks, and that's why this opportunity is where they all do go to 7-Eleven, and that's where 7-Eleven is now going to make a killing on this what they call all cafe. Um, but Starbucks aren't everywhere outside of Bangkok. So I take your point. They're more selective in where they're located outside of Bangkok.
But you
So
do know
the
that, Cam, but you do know that Starbucks don't have the best coffee, right?
oh, I don't want to turn this into you know
No,
McDonald's has the best
I
beans.
It's more the
hey Cheryl,
lifestyle, right? They say at the
Cheryl, I don't
cafe.
want
no,
to make
Cheryl,
I don't want
you don't have to
Cheryl,
convince me because I'm from the East
Cheryl,
Coast, from the East Coast we prefer Dunkin' Donuts, but you're correct.
Cheryl, I don't want to make this
Yes.
kinetic, as Tom just said. So um, the the point I'm trying to make here is that 7-Eleven, by introducing the coffee, the part that they're missing is the meeting working space part of the cafe. And 7-Elevens can do things at scale very quickly. So this Taiwanese 7-Eleven who's testing this, and you might see it in the Japanese 7-Elevens or the Thailand 7-Elevens, of which there's tens of thousands, by the way, of these 7-Elevens. Um, that could become a real thing because Thais don't have this. I think they're more limited for quiet. I think this would be of unique value to Thais in countries that are notoriously kind of higher in volume, which Thailand would definitely fit that. Vietnam would as well. Um, that you have this little quiet spot where you can get something done, and that could be big. Now you've got the
Am
cafe
I
and
am I misinterpreting this, Tyler? Or isn't
what?
this like the the hour quickie places in China that are long?
Fine quickie.
Different, Dr. Francis.
Okay, never mind.
You mean like a foot massage?
No, I
The
thought
quickie pots.
right, the quickie part. I thought
Because
these
because
cafes,
by the way,
these
if you could get if you could do the foot massage, the Chinese foot massage, which people who travel Asia know what I'm talking about. Um, if that was an additional potential upgrade feature, boy, would that be tremendous. Oh, by the way, what if the pods allowed you while you're in the pod? Like, great, you just paid $3 for an hour in the pod. Here's a whole list of partner upgrades. Would you like
right,
a,
right. That's
a
what
foot
I
massage?
thought.
Right. And then the foot massage provider, service provider, is on the ready. They'll be there in 5 minutes,
Yep, pedicure, manicure.
whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh my God, this
I don't know
changes
what a
everything.
7-Eleven is like there, but here in the States, they wouldn't be able to pull something off just because of the brand.
Oh, this would work in Asia. By the way, who's that?
A barista
So
online making a cup of coffee?
Dr.
hold on
Order
though.
Francis.
for Copernicus, pick up for Copernicus.
But think about how many people can do foot massage, but don't want to be sitting all this is a huge unlock. That's wild. If these pods start being ubiquitous everywhere, right? As we're projecting, and they could do partnerships with all kinds of service providers, like just as use this example of like a foot massage, right? And then those foot massage know where those pods are already, so it removes all the friction of finding the thing. And you walk into the pod, there's a list of upgrades, you select foot massage for an extra whatever. The foot massage will be far cheaper than a normal foot massage. You know why? Because the foot massager is not paying the rent, which is the biggest expense line item that they have, especially in major cities.
Tyler, this is
Yeah,
it's really interesting because if you think about this and you go back about 10 or 11 years, there's a precedent to this business model. And that
is
was
there?
how what in the US, right? So you had McDonald's getting into Starbucks business with McCafe. They had the better
Right,
real estate. They had the better traffic flow because they had
right.
drive-throughs where the majority of Starbucks didn't. There wouldn't be a Starbucks. Well, they could have slowed their growth if they had better partnerships, right? But their partnerships were Egg McMuffin, Big Mac, fries, things that people didn't want, and they didn't execute on the strategy. So this is a another perfect model that at least we see at a grand scale, starting slow with ghost kitchens and cloud kitchens, where they're trying to redefine real estate and where all the food is actually cooked, which we know it's not cooked at Starbucks. So I think this is a great idea for 7-Eleven. The other thing that I think we have to cut across is 7-Elevens exist in certain demographies, right? I'm not sure it's a perfect demography, but they're almost everywhere. So this is a real challenger model where they could actually subsidize, like you said, other services, other partnerships. But I go back to the precedent because McDonald's actually had a very good coffee product and better food. The problem was there was no dwell area. They did have Wi-Fi. They didn't have private rooms. So this is kind of like cloud kitchens plus WeWork plus the historical model of McCafe with McDonald's and Starbucks being a challenger to that, meaning McDonald's. This is great innovation from a ho hum retailer to date. I love it.
What?
I
Excuse
got
me. What?
my foot massages on a beach in Phuket. The the massager didn't pay any rent.
That's true.
He just came he just came
No,
up
but
to me.
I know this intimate.
There's not a lot of
I
7-Elevens on the beaches, but I like that model better too.
No, but okay. I'll let me speak firsthand on this because I employ beach massagers at my resort. So they pay significantly. Even Dr. Fran, in some cases you have beach massagers squatting on beaches, but that's actually quite rare. They're actually paying. They have a little shack. The one that you were in had some kind of um, table or shack that they were operating out of. Yeah, or did they come up to you in your chair?
Came up to me in my chair. But there
Okay, then that
were
was
but they came from like a Ramada.
right. Okay, because they're all over Thailand on the beaches. You have people in little bamboo handmade shacks that they're paying to for that little space. They rent that space, and it's almost every masseuse is paying for a space, however small it is. But that's by far their biggest cost, and they're kind of stationary there, and they're dependent on people coming to them. This really flips that totally on its head, and I think it could even work for as we also simultaneously push more into cloud kitchens. I think one of the things slowing down cloud kitchens is if I'm walking through central Manhattan or Tokyo or Ho Chi Minh or wherever, Bangkok, and I start developing the habit of ordering lunch or dinner from a cloud kitchen because it's the most economical way to get it. And I told you in Ho Chi Minh and other Asian cities, they've got the deliveries down to sub 10, 15 minutes. What the part that's missing is the quiet, comfortable place to enjoy the meal that I just got delivered from the cloud kitchen. So if you walk into one of these cute, what are we calling these things? Pods. If we walk into the pod and on the menu of upgrades is, do you want to order from Grubhub? You know, you scan this QR code and you instantly get 5% off, and you can have the shit delivered to you in probably 5 minutes because they know exactly where the pod is and they cater to it or whatever. Wow. Now the friction of where to eat the cloud kitchen meal is gone. And I wonder if that unlocks a new sort of social potential behavior because
But
currently
Tyler,
people are
what would
only
you
ordering from cloud kitchens if they are at their own workplace or home, and now it unlocks spontaneous opportunity for that. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, Tyler, what if this is all part of the same ecosystem, right? What if Cloud Kitchens, Ghost Kitchens, Travis's new venture, what if that
Yeah.
is the B2B model? And as they think about executing the sales go to market model, like sort of Elon is with Twitter, what if this becomes the B2C model, right? Or B2B2C, meaning here's the B2B model, Cloud Kitchens, the B to B to C is this is part of their ecosystem. 7-Eleven becomes a channel partner to Cloud Kitchens because once again, people don't like Starbucks food. I'm speaking personally. And then that becomes the B2C channel go to market part of the Cloud Kitchen ecosystem.
Food for thought. No pun intended. So I believe BB found this one. Did you, BB, from Taipei Times about the
Oh yeah,
FBI?
yeah. Because I saw this. This is Since I work with the buildings and architecture, so this kind of compartment is very clever to expand their existing business model. And Tyler, just like you said, because like a traveler, we Taiwanese we travel to Thailand a lot. If like I have to wait for my plans in the afternoon, so this kind of space can provide me a place to stay if if like you're walking too much in the morning, then I can take a break for 1 hour 2 hour before I go to the airport and still shopping. I can put my luggage there, something. So I think that there can be extra application or collaboration, just like you said, to use this kind of spaces. Then, especially it's 7-Eleven, so the place, the location is must be very great for people to get there. So for travelers, I think they can provide some kind of services to make the travelers have a better uh, service services there. And in Thailand, it's very international. So if you provide like other languages as well, especially in English, it's international. So people can have. I think the imagination can expand.
Oh, these Chinese police stations in the US is interesting.
Yeah, we heard hints of this a month ago, right? So
Yeah.
the Taipei Times article I just pinned at the top that BB found says that the FBI troubled by Chinese quote unquote police stations in the U.S. Now, China doesn't have police stations in the U.S. Officially. America would never allow that, and yet the article we read last time a month ago was about in Europe primarily, was it not?
Yeah,
If I recall.
in especially in Netherlands, like like try to find a way to
Right.
deport them.
Right, and there was I have firsthand reports of friends from Vienna saying that there's at least one of these that exists in downtown Vienna, Austria. So the article says that the U.S. is deeply concerned about the Chinese government setting up unauthorized police stations in the United States to possibly pursue influence operations. FBI Director Christopher Wray told U.S. lawmakers on Thursday. European human rights organization Safeguard Defenders in September published a report revealing the presence of dozens of Chinese police quote unquote service stations in major cities around the world, including New York. Republicans in the US Congress have requested answers from the administration of President Joe Biden about their influence. The report said that stations were an extension of Beijing's efforts to pressure Chinese nationals or their relatives abroad, that this is where it gets dark, y'all, to return to China to face criminal charges, as we've heard other reports of. By the way, this is now pretty much that we've seen so many of these that it's. I think we can just
How
take
is
this.
this different than
God,
CIA safe houses or like other foreign operations and embassies that America has? Because I feel like the reply from China is, we don't have as many as you, so I don't want to hear about it. America still has the most secret police stations external to the U.S., I feel is the kind of argument that they give. The last time when Chinese generals were accused of hacking, they said, we will only admit to hacking if America admits to being the best at it.
Right.
it
So
says
hacking is different. This is and the bases that America has outside of their own country are not intended to police their citizens in another country, in and govern
They've
them
never
by
done
the
that.
laws
They've
of
never
their
done anything
homeland.
like that, Kyle.
It's not the same,
I think it's similar. It's not the same,
but
but
it's
would you
not the
grant me
same.
that it's similar? Elements
Well,
of
if you're a scientist, do you
if
think similar and the same are the same?
And Eric,
same, but still different, but still same.
Eric,
yes, yes,
the service like declared as like giving you renew your drive license and like and
I
that
didn't know that was such a big problem to Chinese foreign
yeah
nationals
that
or
should be
whatever, right?
done
It's like,
through the
wow, that's
embassy.
like
embassy, right? So there's no need to have this police station to be set up overseas. So during the investigation that is done by an NGO, and they found actually just like the article mentioning the article, they tried to persuade quote unquote people that committed some crime to go back to China, and they were threatened them with their
So,
families.
what laws are they breaking? Are they breaking any laws? Because that's the thing where I'm looking at this and saying, hey, when the Russians play our games, they play by our rules and find a way of screwing us over in our game book. So I wonder to what extent the Chinese are tiptoeing or circumventing either regulation or international precedent to allow this in the first place, because I'm not sure. Does anyone on stage know if this is actually illegal according to international standards? Or
And
Yes, it is
normally,
illegal.
I mean,
I believe that it is. I saw a video, and I mean, I say believe and not factual because I'm not a lawyer, but I did see a video of somebody being forced inside of an embassy. So that is something that I did look at, and people were wondering
oh yeah, he was dragged in
what
and beaten up, right?
exactly. Yeah. So do you think
and
that's
Yeah, and the police
legal?
couldn't drag him out, right? Because they can't step on that soil because that's considered Chinese sovereign soil or whatever the term is for those things. But these police stations don't have sovereign soil status. So, from a diplomatic immunity perspective, yeah, they can fuck around, but they're going to find out, right?
I think that's the difference, right? I think based on the discussion that I heard was because there was these police stations that were not the Chinese embassy, and the argument that we're making was basically activities that were supposed to be isolated, like you
Mm.
said, a driver's license, a passport. That's why you have an embassy in all these states, right? So that you could support your citizens. And the Chinese ambassador responded back saying that it had nothing to do with the Chinese government to this reporter. Had said these were all community groups that were starting these stations to help their own, their own people, their Chinese people, as if they didn't already have all the resources.
I think Canada has
Well,
it too. I just pinned an
yeah,
article on top
Canada
about
is
Toronto area.
that's why Trudeau. That's one of the issues Trudeau tried to communicate with Xi during the G20, and the problem is if you if Chinese, I mean the Chinese government tried to accuse some of their citizens overseas, if they did commit crime, normally if that you should do it through like extradition, right?
So, does
But
America and China have an
can't send
extradition?
your police overseas to arrest people directly. Normally they are just the one who uh, politically define Chinese government stance. So it's not a real crime in Western standard.
Yeah, but I thought something like the people who are being approached by the Chinese government, these expatriates, are also people that maybe have left the country in less than, stellar terms and took with them maybe 25, 50 million dollars from the Chinese economy. So I think their claim, as far as I understand it, is that these are people who have engaged in some sort of crime against the state and they're just trying to get justice. So, what argument could we have? There's better channels. Well, I don't know if we have diplomatic channels of that sort for those kind of extraditions, and I don't think we would entertain them either. So,
Well,
By
you're
the
in
way,
Canada,
Eric,
and Canada
sometimes you,
did entertain the extradition of the Huawei CEO's daughter. And what you were mentioning, if other citizens are welcomed into another nation for protection and given refugee status, it doesn't really matter what the other government feels or thinks. If they're offered, citizenship or whatever legal aspects of that specific country for refuge in that country, it's the laws of that country that govern that citizen and not the country where they came from.
well, America seems to think that their laws apply everywhere, as per like Obama's drone strike order, that I have the right to drone strike anywhere on the planet. Actually, thank you.
Right, but we weren't talking about drone strikes. So again,
Talking
not
about
the same.
coercion, force at a distance.
you're making it very abstract, and it's very easy to add ad hominems and falsifiable things just based on your feelings. This is not necessarily how what we're talking about works. It's not based upon our feelings or what we abstract from how one country is operating over the other. It's there are legal laws that do stand, and I understand about the um, what you're talking about. But it is what I'm talking about is refugee status. If people are given
Oh yeah,
refugee status,
yeah. No, that's great. That's an excellent point. Like I myself am a refu or arrived as a refugee in Canada. So that's not something that's new to me. I'm just saying that that status sometimes can be manipulated, and to what extent could China's claims of money laundering and all these other things uh,
So, Eric,
should we
I wanted
entertain
to
them?
I wanted to point out to you, by the way, that when you deal with extradition, even if countries have extradition treaties with each other, sometimes they'll exclude certain types of offenses. So, for example, many of America's extradition treaties with some of our European friends will not cover financial crimes. Okay, so we can only accuse them of a financial crime in the U.S. Some of the European countries will not extradite. It would have to be some other, more like a violent crime or something like that. So you have to actually look at each individual treaty. It's not just a question, is there a treaty, but it's like what kind of crimes does it cover?
I think the question it can, like Eric, if I mean an American commit a crime in Canada, can America's policeman to go after that suspect directly in
The answer
Canada's
is no. If
yeah
they
yeah.
violated Canadian law, but they're subject to Canadian law while they're in Canada.
I mean, you still have like a government to government conversation before those officials to go into Canada to arrest that person, right?
No, no,
So
was the crime committed in Canada or was it committed in the U.S. under
so
your
that's
scenario?
yeah. So let's think back to this Chinese police station setting up in other countries. They
Right.
arrest people
If the Chinese government, wants to accuse an expatriate of committing a crime who's now residing in the United States, they would have to actually, if we have one, file an extradition, um, an extradition, not treaty, but the whatever it is, the order in the United States, and see if the United States was willing to extradite. Okay, and so that's what would have to happen. But the Chinese are not supposed to come here and kidnap someone. The most famous case of where this has come up is Turkey. um, Basically, I believe, asked our government to send somebody back that what's his name, Erdogan wanted back because he thought that this person actually led the insurrection. Well, I don't want to use the word insurrection, but led the opposition against him. That like some of his civil problems over in Turkey were due to this guy or something, and the United States, wouldn't turn him over. Okay, so yeah, that's but Turkey just can't come to the United States and kidnap them.
Yeah, but America does extra. Like they're like, hey, we have a program that can get you out of a country, so they go and like kidnap people and do these sorts of. So I don't think it's like off brand for a superpower to be engaged in this kind of behavior. I think they just got their hand caught in the cookie jar.
But by the way, Eric, I should point out that the superpower that you keep complaining about is the superpower that Canada
Oh no,
actually.
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying, yeah. So just to be clear, like I'm not complaining about America. I'm just saying America has its own rules, and the legal system of America is such that if you break a law that America has in its books, it doesn't matter if you broke that law in the U.S. or not. They can choose uh, post hoc to arrest you or not. And that's actually very strange. And I came across that when I first started learning about corals and regulations of coral exports and imports. And so that was very surprising to me because you can be engaged in something in a different country, but if the U.S. thinks it's illegal, it's just a matter of time before they may or may not decide to act on it.
Well, but they don't have police stations in those countries. They work with the country, and however it is that they work with them, bribes, whatever they do, they get them handed over to them by that country's police force. Or in some cases, like with cyber crimes, they trick the perp into a country that does have an extradition treaty, and then get them there because China doesn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. So that's why a lot of criminals go there and in Russia to hide out.
Yeah, so I think this speaks more to America's influence around the world and its power to leverage those relationships that it has. And I guess this is China's way of kind of making up the difference. And I agree, it's not palatable. It's not like the best way of going about it. I personally don't want to see Chinese police stations around the world that are illegal, so I'm not saying I support them. I'd want to see this addressed. I'm just kind of giving the devil's advocate here. So if anyone was a
Eric,
little upset about
Eric,
my statement,
to point out, if we had similar rules, and the U.S. did similar things, when Americans, and this happens even though supposedly Cuba's embargoed or whatever, we have Americans who go to Cuba through other countries. We have Americans that go to North Korea, actually, believe it or not, on tourism through other countries. They're not supposed to go, but they go. We don't arrest them when they come back to the United States. Okay, we don't necessarily even surveil them. We don't even necessarily know they're there. We don't even know sometimes there's Americans in North Korea until the North Koreans take them hostage, and then they claim, then they come to the United States. They come to they call their relatives in the U.S. Could you call somebody, to help us get us out because we're in a country we're not supposed to be in, and nobody knew we were here, and this is what it is. But if we were surveilling them, we would already know they're there. But so we don't do this. We let Americans get to go wherever they want to go. Okay, so even in countries that are embargoed. So
Okay, so a couple more tweets to jump. Oh, actually, there was an interesting quote in the article. Um, the head of the FBI, Ray, says, "I'm very concerned about this. Uh, we are aware of the existence of these stations," he told the U.S. Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee hearing, acknowledging but declining to detail the FBI's work on the issue. But to me, it is outrageous to think that Chinese police would attempt to set up shop, in New York, let's say, without proper coordination. It violates sovereignty and circumvents standard judicial and law enforcement cooperation processes. Now, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but embassies are sovereign. So why wouldn't they just do this at their embassies?
First of all, the police station is not open like they have a logo says this is Chinese police station from Fujian province thing. They normally
Oh,
disguise them. Yeah,
it says Panda Express on the front, right?
it's like in a
Yeah.
restaurant. There's a um uh, 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 how to say that organization for people coming from the same province. So it's so like it's like in Chinese in China. I mean, in the province, Fujian province, they announced this program, but originally in each of these countries, people, I mean, the government didn't know Chinese have sent out their policemen to set this police station in their country because there's never ever a public place saying a Chinese station, a police station overseas. So that's why it took like
Uh,
it took 6 months to find out.
I'm curious, Bibi, what do they call it in Chinese? Because
Like
this apparently this police station, this term is given by the Western media, right? But what do they call it in Chinese?
oh, 警察局.
They call it 警察局.
Yeah.
You sure they
So
really call it 警察局? No, I'm not talking about police station in Chinese. I'm saying this
oh, it's a
both overseas, what are they called?
uh like I
服务站.
uh in in Chinese I remember because I read it in English. So right now I
Yeah,
cannot be
yeah. Later.
okay later.
Okay,
well,
and let me finish
well,
the
hey,
quote.
Okay, I found it. It said it's 社侨事务海外服务站. So Cheryl, how do you translate that? Yeah,
Yeah,
service
it's
station.
just yeah, it's just service station, right? So that's the
Yeah.
reason why
Right.
I say this.
That's
The
what
term
they.
police station is given by the Western media.
Yeah. Let me read the rest of this article just real quick. It says, um, the facilities could be used to intimidate U.S. residents of Chinese origin. So the children of Chinese nationals who are maybe born in the U.S., who are U.S. citizens or residents. The letter said such stations have also been widely reported concern in Canada and other parts of the world. Earlier this month, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs denied it had such stations in the Netherlands after a probe by the Dutch authorities. That's the one we read a month ago that I said at the start of this article. China said they were offices to help Chinese citizens renew documents. Like you kind of do at embassies, actually. Ray said Washington had made a number of indictments involving the Chinese government harassing, stalking, surveilling, and blackmailing people in the U.S. who disagreed with policies implemented by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Quote, it's a real problem and something that we're talking with our foreign partners about as well, because we're not the only country where this has occurred. The U.S. last month unsealed criminal charges against 7 Chinese nationals accused of waging a surveillance and harassment campaign against a U.S. resident and his family in a bid by the Chinese government to repatriate one of them back to China. It was the latest case by the Justice Department targeting China's effort to track down people overseas who Beijing calls criminal suspects, known as Operation Fox Hunt. End of article. So these are international, and separately, countries are concerned
But I'm
about.
just curious. Long time ago, when the Chinese immigrants go all around the world, they always gather like places in Chinatown and different. I mean, depending on which province they are from, they also have different like so-called like Chinese. I think they call it 会馆, right? Like clubs or clans that the people from those
同乡会.
origin, yeah, something like that. They can actually go there for help as well, right? So is this different from those? I mean, it's kind of similar, right? Just that maybe it's more modernized now. I'm not sure.
But mm, before they don't have this policeman stationed there. It's just like people from the same province or from same cities. They gather together and help each other if you have problem
Yeah.
in the U.S. So but right now those policemen actually trying to find out who's politically against, especially Xi Jinping. So that's political I mean, so they are trying to extend their uh, suppress from the Chinese domestic issues than now overseas.
Right.
So
They're trying to control narratives internationally beyond their borders by
So
intimidating Chinese people with links to China that they can control outside of China. And by the way, I saw a fascinating documentary on a similar point of Uyghurs living in Pakistan. And because of Pakistan's government not being quite funded by the Chinese, Pakistan's putting the clamp down on Uyghurs living in Pakistan.
so
For
do you
because
all
in Pakistan,
remember do you remember
the,
the joint interview with MI5 and the FBI, which is unheard of, a few months
about
ago?
4 months ago, I do, yeah.
And they gave warnings. So let's assume that there's probably other things, because I think a lot of us were just thinking of only cyber, but maybe that was like a shot over the bow that included these so-called stations. And then lastly, Tyra, you asked why don't they just do it at the embassy? Maybe I mean we kind of know the embassy's a track too, right? I mean,
I was gonna say the
look at
bug, yeah,
look at look at Saudi Arabia with what they did with Khashoggi. I mean,
yeah,
nobody ever asked like how the hell did Turkey get a
yeah.
audio on what was
Audio
going on?
recording, yeah, yeah.
So
but I
Okay,
think that it's just Chinese government did this so bluntly. If you want to, like CIA, it's like in the dark. Normally, they will not see they have this covert operation. But Chinese government just announced that they have this program sending policemen outside. That's why this is very serious, especially to the sovereign or the country's right. Each, I believe, all the countries. Actually, there are 17 countries right now having all these stations. So you
It's diplomatic fumbling. I mean, really bad diplomatic fumbling again by China.
and it's getting
Next,
I wonder if it's not maybe on purpose because when people hear this, let's say in Portugal, somebody, my grandmother would hear, oh, Chinese police are setting up shop in Portugal. She would be outraged and probably very suspect of anyone that looks kind of Asian. You know, it's my grandmother. It's just how it is. So, um, I wonder if that's not on purpose, so they kind of people turn against people looking Asian, and then this kind of brings them back to their own country identity. I'm not sure, but it looks like
I don't
just
think that affects
too.
us in that way. I mean, there might be other things, but that
There's already Chinese like violence against Asians when
yeah, but this
COVID
has
was
nothing to do with
there.
that. This doesn't turn people against Asians.
I think the impact will be more towards those Chinese people abroad because they I think they just want to remind them that they can't just do anything they want even when they're outside of China. So I think I think those
exactly.
Chinese abroad
That's a big deal right
will
there.
have to be
There's
careful,
Wasn't
nowhere
but
that
you
not
can go
us.
where we
I don't think
can't
they
get
care
to
about
you.
us. Yeah.
yeah,
wasn't that a page of North Korea? Something like that. They mentioned something like that as well for North Korea.
They need to be able to control their citizens even beyond their
Yes.
jurisdiction, is what it comes down to.
Exactly.
Okay, so the next article is from KC from Reuters that Amazon workers called to strike across the globe on Black Friday. So I remember they did this last year. You remember the article same article last year. They're strategically picking their moment to do a David versus Goliath maneuver. And you got to do it on Black Friday when they need us the most. That's when we can inflict the most harm. And it didn't really work out last year. I suspect it'll have similar failings this year. Workers at Amazon
So
site across the globe, including the United States, Germany, and France, were expected to go on strike on Black Friday. Well, guess what? Amazon knew a year ago you were going to do this. So I think they probably took precautions. The Make Amazon Pay initiative was right there in the name, which makes the call for strikes, said industrial action was planned in more than 30 countries, including the US and Germany. There were demonstrations at 9 out of Amazon's 20 warehouses in the country, although on Friday morning, the company said the vast majority of its employees in Germany were working as normal. France's unions called for strike action in the country's 8 warehouses. Amazon France said there had been no sign of disruption to operations so far. Two French union officials said they were not expecting a big turnout because the rising cost of living was driving employees to seek overtime. And in Germany, unions demanded the company recognize collective bargaining agreements for the retail and mail order trade sector. It also called for further collective agreements, blah, 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 blah. French unions called for higher cash bonuses. Quote, as an employer, Amazon offers great pay, benefits, and development opportunities, all in an attractive and safe working environment, a spokesperson for Amazon Germany said in a statement.
I don't understand how this is going to work. Amazon works by you putting in an order. That order is going to be in the system. It doesn't have to ship on, Black Friday. It's going to be there. They can send you an email saying, "Oh, sorry, we're going to be late 24 hours or whatever." So whenever the strike is done, they can resume where they left off. Maybe those days of strikes being so effective are long gone now. Who knows?
Didn't Amazon kind of preempt this strike too by last week announcing again that they're laying off over 10,000 people too? So that's a good way of preempting a strike, right?
Yeah, 10,000 out of like 1,500,000 workforce that they have is like a drop in the ocean, but it's like
Hey, don't
a
worry. Your
big
job doesn't
ship.
matter. You're just a drop in the ocean. Amazon.
Yeah, I know
Yeah, but
it's
you know,
this.
here's the thing: is mostly when you're trying to create fear, it's not like you got to take out everybody. It's no different than when the Klan was lynching blacks. They didn't kill everybody; they just killed a few, and then you scare the whole community. That's 10,000 may not sound big, but to somebody who's living check to check and they don't know where that 10,000 is coming, that's enough to scare a good number of people. Even if you have a million, that's all I'm saying.
And these strikes didn't have a lot of
You're right.
participation here in the Midwest. I mean, we're talking about a couple people. It wasn't. I've had relatives who were working at Amazon warehouses, and they send pictures. You see it on the news, and of course they group all the people together, so you think it's a fairly decent crowd. But at the warehouse, there might be 4 or 5 people out there picketing. So it doesn't. I don't think Amazon's really bothered by it.
Okay. Last but not least, let me see. Yes, Ken has one. MIT reports breakthrough in solid state lithium battery development. Please, 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 please. We could really use that right about now. MIT's new discovery could finally usher the development of solid state lithium batteries, which could be more lightweight, which would be amazing because then you could have far more use cases, like airplanes. And what else? And by the way, MIT, that's about as respectable of institution for this kind of an innovation as you could hope to have. Um,
Yeah, those
it could
batteries
be
are
more.
really exciting because they'll end up being structural as well. So instead of just having a huge battery pack at the bottom, if you can actually incorporate it into the frame or the rigid structure of the vehicle, it's going to be really exciting for planes. So I think it's just a matter of time for planes. Most people saying planes are not possible, but I think whenever you say it's not possible, there's always a scientist or engineer somewhere who says, "Oh yeah, well, let's see about that." So
Hold my beer.
I'll, co-
That's
I'll,
that's the
I'll confidently say it's not possible, buddy, forever. Chemical batteries with planes in the 10,000 mile range, passenger planes in the 10,000 mile range sort of category. Not happening. I've had this conversation ad
okay,
nauseum with a friend.
I'll make a bet for
Make a
$200 in
bet.
the next 5 years. That's my bet.
Sure. Good luck. I'd love it
Flip
to be the
it.
case because I've had this conversation ad nauseum with a battery researcher at the local union. I'm like, dude, are you sure you can't? He's like, we're not going to do more than double lithium batteries ever on most. Depends on which scale, right? You do what energy density, like per unit mass? It won't double. Volume density might get a little bit better, but most factors aren't gonna double, unfortunately, on chemical batteries. Wherever you go on the
then.
periodic table and whatever you do with it, which is kind of depressing. But
Then what
yeah, I
about
hope I'm
fluoride?
wrong. I hope
What
I'm
about
wrong.
fluoride based batteries?
Look, from what I could see talking to James, I mean, we talked about everything from elastic bands to black holes and compressed air to, I don't know, wiring into organisms, whatever you like. It doesn't. That the impression I get speaking to the people who are researching it is they know exactly what they're freaking doing. They're not losing the wood for the trees. They understand the periodic table. They understand what elements and combinations of elements are available to us. They deeply understand what energies are available. And yeah, I
An
don't think
electric
they.
plane with 650 mile range, I think that's pretty good. That's a start. Not the 10,000 kilometers you're talking about, but
Yeah, a few hundred is each energy source like batteries or fossil fuels has an intrinsic energy. If you take a lump of fossil fuel like petrol, diesel, kerosene, and you ask how far up in the air could it fire itself? Ignore air resistance, ignore all that. But how if it blew up, how far in the air could it fire itself? A fossil fuel, typically a hydrocarbon-based fuel, can fire itself about 4,000 kilometers in the air. Which means you multiply that by three because that's to do with the interrelationship between lift drag ratios and other stuff of planes. And it means that a fuel with an intrinsic energy of 4,000 kilometers of height can take an aircraft about 3 times that, 12,000 kilometers, which is exactly what we find they can do. Lithium batteries, you're talking more like 80. So multiply that by the three, and you get, not 80. Sorry, I don't remember exactly what it is for lithium-ion batteries, but it's like on the order of 10 times less. So 1,000 miles from a battery operated aircraft with passengers. I'm not talking about some flimsy NASA prototype thing with solar panels all over the wings that's a glider and carries no payload. I'm talking about something that's designed to carry payload. I would eat my hat if that goes more than 1,000 miles in the
Yeah,
at
but it
any
might be
point on
like
chemical
EV
batteries.
vehicle. It might be like electric cars, though, right? Hey, all you need is this much to make a small change, not only in technology, but also in culture. Because I think just by merely having electric cars, people have become more careful in their thought process around energy.
Uh,
So I think,
Well, I think that, and I hope that all short-haul aircraft will be electric as quickly as possible. It's completely feasible for very short haul, for like on the order of a few hundred miles, and it's a great idea in a lot of respects. I'd love to fly an electric aircraft for lots of reasons, simplicity if nothing else. But we should understand that we're not having chemical battery-based aircrafts going halfway around the world. I would confidently say ever. I don't mean like in 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, ever, because that's how physics works. So, yeah, let's not get too excited that chemical batteries are going to do more than roughly double in most factors. How much energy per unit mass or volume or whatever. We need something else that isn't chemical
Fuel
batteries.
cell? How about fuel cell?
Well, energy storage system, are they? They're just a way of burning a fuel like hydrogen effectively in a slightly more efficient way. So hydrogen can be great. Great thing about hydrogen is it's 3 times more uh, energy per unit mass than even a fossil fuel. Now, bear in mind that fossil fuels are many tens of times more energy per unit mass than a battery, which is why they're great in things like planes. Hydrogen is 3 times a fossil fuel, but it takes up as much space as a battery, which is many, many, many times fossil fuel. So if big passenger plane ran off hydrogen, it could be lighter, which is fantastic, but the hydrogen would take up a huge amount of space, like more than 20 times the space of the fossil fuels, which are just in current designs there isn't room for. But you could imagine merging the fuselage with the wings, with the engines more, and having more volume for fuel. But all of those figures I'm quoting aren't including the complexities of storing that hydrogen, and then, as you talked about, the fuel cell burning it. So batteries are very simple, they're very elegant, they're solid state, no moving parts, no hydrogen to contain. When you get into fuel cells and hydrogen, you've got pipes and containment and all sorts of other issues. So yeah,
Hey
I
Ben,
batteries.
think hydrogen is very
for
realistic. I had a guest speaker that invented the procedure to get hydrogen very cheaply and fairly easily at room temperature out of water, out of all kinds of water types. Even they having a startup company, and the thing is, it was done before. Hindenburg is one of the most famous examples. At the same time, the cool thing is you could transport also hydrogen by having these huge air balloons at the same time. So I think hydrogen is I think it's already started to being used in Europe, in Germany, and so on, to have this hydrogen air transportation. So
hey
Yeah,
Ben,
planes is an ideal
four or
place for
five,
it.
yeah
Cars
Ben,
isn't. Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago there was a flurry of enthusiasm around capacitors as a storage alternative.
Mm.
Why did that vanish?
Because you just can't get the plates close enough. You can't. You just it just the energy densities are awful with capacitors. They're very powerful, very huge powers. You can get huge amount of power for a very short amount of time, but you can't support the electrostatic potentials that you would need to get energy densities that are anywhere near a
unless you
chemical
had
battery.
unless you had some sort of superconductor.
I think even then, again, I've had many a conversation like this with James and others wandering down the street about surely we can do it. And yeah, I'm not sure
Well,
the
you can
capacity
load a
that
supercapacitor infinitely, right? In principle, so there might be some limit, but it might allow you to load it more than you would otherwise. But I think the current state of material science is just not quite there.
I think it's more fundamental than that. We can take that offline. I have been down exactly this route several times. Super good for super power for short amount of time. Energy densities useless, and specific energies, which is the same thing, but looking at weight instead of volume, both pretty useless for capacitors as I understand them. And again, always will be. But I can come back to you, Eric, as to why on a side channel, so we don't bore you.
Yeah, sure.
well, I
Okay,
read
Ben, are
that
you?
the Japanese company coming from, scientists from and I also from NIMS here in the US, like a collaboration. They managed to have a battery that could maybe be used in airplanes since it has like many fold times of the Tesla vehicle capacity. So, and then the conductivity, there's a researcher, Dr. Onan, who started a company. He is based at MIT that um, superconductive stuff at room temperature that is very more potential. So I don't think it will be impossible. Maybe not transatlantic flights or flights to Singapore from the US or something, but on shorter flights. And that would already be probably the biggest amounts, at least in Europe, of flights that you would cover, that you can get off regular carousel.
Yeah, it makes sense in a region like that where, hey, normally you would have to have a larger vehicle. I think the question is how are the runways going to deal with that increased traffic if it is something that spurs up? Because I could see something like an Uber taxi, but air Uber, and it's able to come and pick me up wherever I want. I think that's already happening in places like Dubai, France. They're already running those kind of pilots to see what the noise disturbance is like. But just imagine having to hover 3, 4, 5, 10 tons above somebody's head in a metropolitan region. Some cultures may be more understanding of that than others. I think Germany, for example, has crazy ordinance laws such that some Microsoft keyboards and Logitech keyboards don't even qualify to be sold for at-work use in Germany. So it really depends on what part of the world we're discussing.
But
The
didn't we have a
article.
speaker here on Tech News who was based in Germany that got a lot of approvals already done, Tyler? It was like a bunch of months ago. But this was drone technology, but they were planning also for personal transportation. And
It's
I think the only hurdle was the autonomous vehicle transportation, but I think they got approval for a lot of stuff already. Maybe I
it
missed
is
it.
it's worth bearing in mind that any form of heavier than air flight is already about as efficient as it can get, and the smaller you make it, typically the less efficient it gets. So, for example, there's like a big passenger aeroplane, a 747 or something, is very efficient. It's full of people. It's about as efficient as driving yourself in an EV in terms of per 100 kilometers or whatever measure you want to take like that. But smaller aircraft like drones and stuff always going to be worse. It's really hard to beat. You can't beat a passenger plane. They'll get a little tiny bit more efficient, tens of percent, but they're so optimized. It's incredible. Cars have got a long way to go. We could do a lot better with cars, but planes already most of the way there. But yeah, I hope to see planes, short haul planes on batteries. The batteries that's pinned in the article are lithium air batteries. That's slightly different. They're not. That's not. That's not a pure. Well, it is, but it's a breathing battery. So it takes energy. See, one of the unfair advantages a plane has when burning fossil fuel is it takes a bunch of energy out of the air. It takes energy out of the oxygen bonds in the air, right? So it's using burning air around it. Now, a normal chemical battery can't do that. It's completely self-contained. It weighs the same when you take off as when you land. A breathing battery, like a lithium air battery that I was talking about, the good thing about it is it does a little bit of what combustion does. It takes some of the energy out of the air, out of oxygen molecules. Unfortunately, that means the battery, the actual electrolyte itself, gets 3 times heavier from fully discharged to fully charged to fully discharged. So as the plane flies, the battery gets heavier, which is exactly the opposite to what you want for efficiency in a plane, really. Your normal plane, it burns fuel
I
higher
think when you charge your
and
car,
so forth.
though, so hold on, one comment though. I know it's going to be a very small amount, but I think there is
It's
measure.
going to be micrograms. If you're talking about the increased weight of a Tesla,
Yeah.
it's going to be
You even know where I'm
nanograms.
going. Okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Just wanted
Nanograms.
yeah,
But
for Rick,
these
for the
things,
first take.
yeah, sure. Nanograms when you charge your Tesla, you're talking about tripling the weight of the electrolyte with one of these. And the whole battery doesn't triple in weight because it's full of other crap, supporting structures and stuff. So they get heavier. So again, it's all conspires that it's fantastic for short haul, and I can't wait to see more of it. There are already electric planes, very short range electric planes available, and they're going to get better, but they ain't going to go halfway around the world. So now the other thing yeah, no, that's probably it. Oh yeah, lithium air batteries. So the other thing on lithium air, unless somebody's unexpectedly made a huge breakthrough, is they hardly have any charge cycles. So the state of play right now, as far as I understand it, having been in some lithium-air battery research labs recently and spent my hands in, time in there speaking to people, is that luckily the military are buying them really early because they only have like less than 10 dead. Now the military for a drone don't give a shit, right? They want a battery-powered drone. They want it. They don't care if they have to change the battery after 2 or 3 flights. They just want it to be possible. So a breathing battery, an air battery, can go further. And if you only get 10 cycles out of it, so what? But that's where we are at the moment. That's the big problem with them, is that they can't be recharged enough times compared to, say, a lithium ion phosphate
There's a new
1,000
technology of South
times.
Korea. I had the whole team that were here from South Korea with UK, I believe, and developed a quantum charging method that as larger as the battery gets, the faster the charging is. So you would need only less than 3 minutes for a Tesla. And if the battery gets larger, it's even faster. And I can share the presentation with you that they shared with me.
Yeah, that was a really great talk,
Now you're
Katerina.
talking, yeah.
I remember actually being in that room, and that was a very exciting innovation because it's an example of, this year Nobel Prize in Physics, entanglement, non-local nature of reality is now evident and a fact, no longer in dispute, and this is one of those ways where we can exploit that feature or quirk of the universe, and the idea of it charging faster the bigger it is because there's more entanglement. My only question is, how does the cost scale? Obviously, it's going to be an expensive prototype, but the expectation, how many cycles of generations for, I think solar took 17 generations of innovation for it to break through that 12.5% market breakthrough, whatever threshold that's usually discussed in markets. So I think
It
it's an
would.
interesting question. I don't recall the answer, so my apologies, Katerina. But I remember the battery being rather expensive. So uh,
It's awesome
Yeah.
if we. Sorry, Katrina, go ahead.
No, no, no. Good. I was planning actually to match this group up with another guest speaker that talked about new battery developments, but I didn't get around to it. I should do it in the new year. But that would be interesting. But they are collaborating with different groups now to like address the battery part and then also the infrastructure to build up these this charging stations that would be different from the current charging station infrastructures.
Anything where we can charge faster would be amazing. We need to think about the wider concepts, though. If you charge a Tesla, an 85 kilowatt hour Tesla Model 3 in 3 minutes, you're going to need 1.7 megawatts of power. So that is 7,000 amps at 240 volts. That is a veritable power station. I mean, that is not something you can get most places. If you want to charge, same bigger things charge faster. So let's take a Tesla Cybertruck, maybe 1,000 kilowatt hours as a guess what its battery would have. And you're saying faster means it can, bigger means it can charge faster. So 1,000 kilowatt hours in 1 minute, let's assume, it's great, it'd be amazing if we could do it, but 60 megawatts. So that
Yeah.
is
Like my
it's like a
idea
little
was
Chernobyl you
actually
need on the side of the road.
yeah, exactly, to have micro nuclear power stations, like a micronet of it. That would be, way make also more sense for regions that are being targeted by climate change, where you have all this power outages. If you have a large scale network, I don't think for the future this will be resilient enough. So there are people already talking about these micronets. So for example, I think Princeton, they didn't have one power outage through all these hurricane seasons, where the rest of the East Coast had power outage, because they already started this trial of micronet infrastructure version. So I think the trend would go there anyways, and I think mini nuclear plants could take care of that.
Well, and in addition to the resilience of micronetworks, whatever the energy power source, the resilience to cyber attacks could be dramatically reduced. So, from a national security standpoint, micronetworks for any energy source makes sense. Ben, I'd love your thoughts on that.
Sorry, John. My thoughts are I've really got to go start this room that I should have started 10 minutes ago and people are messaging me about. Yes, I'm all for a little bit more redundancy in all of these systems, in all of our supply chains. You know, COVID has taught us that. Power is one of them as well. As we want to be more sustainable, we typically, it would be great if we had a lot more redundancy in the system in general. Yeah, we've gone to a model where, you know, we pretty much rely on Russia as a gas station for the whole planet, and we've realised that's, I think, a little bit mad. So I'm not at all afraid of throwing a little bit of the lean principle out of the window, everything being just in time and minimal inventory and all the rest of it. As much as I love and have preached that over the years, it does have this downside. You know, the internet keeps working.
Did we lost you, Ben?
Yeah, so from a cybersecurity,
Like he's out of power.
The
Yeah.
internet
Hey,
keeps
by the way,
working,
I put
except
an article on top about a hybrid electric plane that Air Canada and United Airlines have already ordered.
you know what the part about this is? All we do is keep on talking about these charging stations for all these. And most people haven't even focused on the hackability of a lot of these Tesla charging stations and how that's grown. Essentially, you can take the charging station to pretty much blow up the cars.
you can do
Mm.
that with a phone, though, right? So,
I think you get a larger boom with the car. What do you think,
well,
Eric?
it's closer to your head, though, so we can time that. Just there's a TED talk about this. I'll post the link.
Please do.
That's probably a
Ben, you
DARPA
want to
project.
finish what you were trying to comment just now?
I was busy opening Club Deck, and of course that boots me off. I was just saying one of the reasons the internet's so resilient is we have a lot more routers than we need. Right? Everybody in a community could be plugged into a single router back at somewhere, you know, in some central exchange or whatever. But we're not. We've got routers all over the place in cabinets on the roadside and in our house, and you know, we've got many more ways of internet traffic getting around. Or
A single what?
need a single what?
Router,
Oh,
router.
you're gonna, yeah. Look, I'm speaking. I know you guys say router. I'm
Router and
English.
router.
Who's the English man here, if you don't mind? in the
I love it.
in the UK, a router is a device. I don't know what you guys call it, but you kind of cut wood with it. You draw
Rotor
profiles.
tool,
What's that?
a
I don't
rotor
know what you
tool.
guys call it. Look, all I know
A
about
router.
American is when a osteopath, or what do you guys call it, chiropractor asked me to take my pants off, and he'll be back in the room in a minute. He got a nasty shock when he came back in. Since then, I just stick to British English, and if you guys can't keep up, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
You know, a router in the US is usually a plumber also, so.
So UK
yeah, but
English or full Monty? Got it.
Yeah, don't
but let's be
challenge the
realistic,
British of the English, okay?
right?
Yeah, they invented it, gave it to the world, and we made it better.
That I
Ruder
agree
ties
with
into
you.
clean
You made it.
toilets.
Oh, sorry, interrupt.
Yeah, I was just saying Ruder ties into Roto-Rooter, which is a company used to clean toilets.
Yes,
Yeah, I like the way you
but
simplified it, you guys.
the
It's
spelling, the
cute.
spelling, yeah, the spelling is different.
Made all the spelling easier. Well, it's simpler, isn't it? Anything complicated, just simplify it down. I like that. It's fitting.
Okay, Tyler, you
Alrighty,
want to?
Ben, go do the room. We'll
Yeah,
shut
Ben,
this
you have
bad
a
boy
room
down.
today?
Yeah, we're celebrating the Buy Nothing Day. You heard that it's International Buy Nothing Day today? So we're going to celebrate that and see how that goes.
No, it's not. Stop making our businesses tank, man.
Yeah,
Well,
buy
that's what we need
more.
to
Greed is
discuss,
good. Greed is good.
and
Yeah,
Buy
that's
woo!
what we
more,
need to
buy
discuss.
more.
Today only.
Look,
Thank
with these
Bye,
you.
inflation
and
rates, we
turn.
need all the discounts we can get.
Okay, see you guys on Monday then.
All right, everybody.
Thanks,
See you,
everyone.
bye.